Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Dave and I'm joined as ever by my friend Ian.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about reenactment.
Something a little bit different. A little flavour change.
On the Venn diagram of LARP, one of those is definitely reenactment.
I think so. Yeah.
We've talked about this for a while. We know reenactors that go LARPing.
Yeah.
There's always been I don't know, how would you describe the vibe between LARPers and reenactors?
Oh, I think it's like any hobby dude, right? You have people who are probably on the outside on one sort of edge of that Venn circle who are like, I'm never going to do the LARPing thing, it's too cringe for me. And then the people who actually do both, who are just like, no, LARPing's awesome and reenactment's awesome. It's almost like we're talking about vast quantities of people in population masses who have different opinions.
It's like cosplay has literally zero interest for me, although I've talked to Oli about it, so I might go. But anyway, but yeah, I feel like they live in parallel, but they're very different worlds, but different people can kind of dip their toe into both, maybe.
Yeah, like, I've never really been, like, I think for me, it's always seemed like people who are really, really into historical periods and really, really into, like, recreating them and doing those things, I've always found that very intimidating and definitely not for me. Yeah. Well, I think for some people that is definitely their jam. Like, I like a bit of fantasy. I like a little bit of not worrying about historical kind of precedent and stuff like that and things. So it definitely is for all different types of folks.
We're going to talk about my friend Adam, he does the Inquiring Ink Cap at Empire,
which is phenomenal. Tell us his favourite paper.
Yeah, he's a very, very smart man, a very, very nice guy. And we got to chatting, and he was like, "Why don't you come to a reenactment?" And he said, "We'll provide you with all the gear. You just need to show up."
Amazing. I mean, how can you turn that down, Dave?
How can you turn that down?
How can you turn that
nice
down?
People, new experience. Let's go.
Yeah.
We went to the Battle of Tewkesbury.
Yes.
Which was part of the Wars of the Roses.
Yeah.
Which is for those people. Probably British people don't know much about it either. Like, it's a very.
I honestly don't know that much about it. Like,
deeply complicated.
Yeah.
The wars lasted 30 years.
Yeah.
Basically it was between the Yorkish and the Lancastrians, and basically they knocked shit out of each other for 30 years, trying to decide who would be the next king.
Yeah.
The first belligerents in the battle in the war didn't even survive to the end. It was extremely bloody. I think it might have been, I think I'm right in saying this, the bloodiest conflict in British history. Right. I think that's true. It's very savage, very brutal. It was in 1471. So you're starting to see the introduction of gunpowder.
Yeah.
You're still got guys, armoured knights and men-at-arms.
Yeah.
All that jazz, basically. I didn't know really what to expect before going there, so I hopped in my car and I made my way to Tewkesbury. Yeah. I went there on the Friday. Adam kindly met me at the gate and gave me a reenactor ticket, which I presented at the gate. They gave me a little armband, and off I went into the thing. And the site is actually on the same site as where the battle took place.
Yeah.
So there were like 4,000 aside.
Yeah,
so
I've heard of it before, like that this reenactment took place.
The belligerents were like, obviously, two fellas called Edward, because why on earth would, like, there's in British history there's just Richards, Edwards, like it fucking just change your names up, lads. Honestly. I get there, I go and park up. I'm in the a campsite, which is so they separate plastic and authentic.
Right.
Authentic is what it sounds like, and plastic is where the hoi polloi like myself, with my 4-meter canvas bell tent, is not authentic and is in the plastic camp.
Right. Okay.
So headed down there. Found a spot. It's like kind of help yourself. And then me and Adam, before I set my tent up, were like, let's go have a mooch around and look what's going on.
Yeah.
There's like carnival stuff.
Yeah.
So
is it kind of Ren Fair kind of style stuff going on?
Yeah. So there's like your usual kind of like fairground rides, bumper cars, shit like that.
Yeah.
There's a big beer tent, loads of shops, and people milling around. When I got there on the Friday, because, and I'll reiterate this, reenactment, unlike LARP, is for the show.
Yeah.
Okay? Like when we're LARPing, we're doing it for ourselves and the people we're interacting with. There's no audience.
Yeah.
Reenactment is a performance. It's a display of... It's literally a reenactment, right?
Yeah.
But obviously people aren't killing each other. Well, hopefully not. And it's on a significantly smaller scale than it would have been in the past. But it is an audience.
Yeah, it's a window into a moment in time, right? Yeah.
So we had a walk around, and the nice thing about Adam is he's like virtually encyclopedic on his knowledge of history. So we're walking around, and he's like, "Oh, this is what they call the Bloody Meadow, where a load of fucking people died." Basically, spoilers, so don't listen now if you want to hear about who won. But actually, I'll save it for the end. But basically, one side lost, and they got absolutely murdered. Okay,
Right.
There was like, we walked up to like Chapel Hill, where a bunch of these fellows had gone into the chapel, hoping that holy ground would give them some sort of... No, they dragged them out and cut all their heads off.
Right.
It's a very bloody period of time. A lot of people died. It was one thing that I found interesting was this kind of connection between us. When we go to LARP, it's fantasy, or it's the Wild West, or it's none of it's real. Whereas to think like, I kept on having these moments of like, this really took place here. Like, this battle actually happened in this location. Thousands of people lost their lives. Lots of people were butchered. Walked around. So the event is supposed to be the largest in Europe. Because of Brexit, an awful lot of the sellers and groups from Europe didn't come.
Right.
So I think it was on a slightly smaller scale. You didn't have, like, allegedly there were very large German groups, Polish groups, French that would come over and kind of add to the whole thing. That's kind of declined now because of, obviously, we're not part of the EU, which is a shame. But yeah, the actual site itself, lots of people there were people dressed up on the Friday, already dressed up in their in their period gear. And I was told, like, hey, we've got your clothes and stuff. I went down to the... I was part of House Corbet.
Yeah. Is this like a historical house as well? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the what do they call the
heraldry?
Heraldry.
Or livery, I don't know.
Evil. Yeah. All of it's legit.
Yeah.
Everyone's like... some people... Like, it was funny, like... You'll be putting these shoes on, and it'll be like, these are a little bit late or a little bit early, you know what I mean? It'll be like, they literally look like medieval shoes to me. I have zero...
reference.
Like, it's medieval shit. Like, I don't know where in medieval history that is, but that's, but very... People... Yeah. Okay, we'll tackle a lot of this stuff later on, but I'll try and get through some of the cool stuff. The camp areas on the authentic field are kind of cornered off.
Right.
So during the time when the public are in, you can't be in there wearing your normal everyday clothes. You have to be in costume. There is no governing body for reenactment. So each reenactment is kind of its own entity when it comes to rules for fighting, kit. So it feels like there's more of an emphasis on the community policing itself,
Right.
which is good and bad. I think like there's obvious downsides to this because you end up having social pressure rather than officials, which is different in its own right. I was introduced to the members of the Corbet House. I'm like some dickhead wandering in off the street, not knowing anything, and they were so welcoming. And I'm like, but the group I was part of, there was Adam, who obviously I know, Mila, who I know from some LARPs, a lovely lady called Valentine, who was there. Like, we also had a couple of families. So one family had like a couple of young boys, and they were having a blast running around, you know, being little lads. Another family had 2 teenage daughters. So I was like saying that one of them was like 17, and I was going to her like, "What do you tell your friends you're doing?" And she was like, "Well, I told work I'm just going camping. Like I want to, you know, go into it." It's like, you imagine what it's like being an awkward teenage. Not that they were awkward, but like. The kind of social pressures of it being like a really nerdy hobby. They were all very, very welcoming, very helpful, very patient with me because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. It's my first rodeo, so we have a bit of a mooch around. Have a cider at the beer tent.
Nice.
There was when it comes to food and other services, a lot of the retailers are there for the crowds. Yeah. So a lot of the shops weren't open on the Friday. A lot of the food vendors, I think there was one food vendor that was open. But generally, it's kind of most of those things. So if you're going and you're going to go and camp out there and get involved, probably a good idea to bring some food with you or buy food when it's there. Just because a lot of those retailers are going to close when the crowds leave. Yeah. So I'm in Tewkesbury. It gets to about 10 o'clock. My friend Violet, who is also a supporter of the podcast, lives in Tewkesbury. So I went to see her and some friends. So I had a few beers. I really like Tewkesbury. I've been there before. It's a lovely little market town. It's very medieval. Like the buildings. It's
still got that feel, right?
A lot of the buildings were there when the battle happened, right? It's very old, very little in twee. Love the pubs around there. Had a few beers, headed home. I was pretty pissed. I woke up and then I spoke to Adam the day before, and I was like, "What time do I need to be here?" Right? Like my LARP hat is on. Like, what time is time in? What do we have to do? Right? I had to like kind of unlearn this way of thinking because reenactment really is like there's the battles, but that's really all you have to do. Right. So I woke up and I headed down there at about 10 o'clock. They were off at the captain's meeting, which is where literally what it sounds like. They take the leaders of each house, and they basically explain what's going to happen in the battle, how it's going to roll out, a lot of the rules, stuff like that. It's a bit of a closed group, so I can go to that. But so I went back to my tent. I fell asleep again. I got up at around midday, headed back to the camp.
It was hot as well, right?
Really hot. Also, it rained on the Saturday as well.
But it was that kind of humid breaking rain.
It was so humid. Yeah. And we're down by the river with lots of heat. It was really humid. So I get there and Adam's like, "Right, here's your gear." Right? I got you. There's like a white shirt. So I'm literally like, think of them like pants, but they're like giant boxer shorts. Okay, they're like huge. They're your pants. Here are your split hose. Okay. These are just like wooden leggies you pull up on your legs. And then you tie them off onto an underbelt. So your kind of crotch area is like pants. And then you got your
you got leg warmers on essentially.
I'm actually quite a big fan of split hose. I want to bring them back. They are very comfortable.
There's a bunch of ye olde men's clothing. When being a man, fashion is often pretty pants. I find. there's a whole bunch of stuff. Cloaks, something as simple as a cloak. I really fucking dig having a cloak.
Yeah, me too.
It's like you can be dramatic and flappy with your cloak, and you can wrap yourself up and keep warm. You can take it off. All this kind of stuff. It's great.
I hope they come back.
Yeah.
Very convenient for a few important aspects. Less convenient for others.
True.
But it was like, love me some split hose.
Yeah. Especially in that weather, right? Because you've got some.
I think just okay. I've dressed in drag a few times over the years, and I was like stunned at how heat regulation happens with dresses. Same thing with split hose.
Yeah.
We need to. There's not enough circulation down there. Yeah. We need to revolutionise as men.
Free
ourselves to have good temperature circulation.
Yeah.
Is where I'm at. Anyway, there's like a tunic thing that they got me, and the shoes. And the shoes are like worth talking about in their own right. Okay. They're like leather. There's no padding in them.
Yeah.
Their sole is like flat as a pancake.
Right.
There's no grip at all. So you basically have to kind of learn how to walk again. If you're going to... So when we're walking around in our trainers or our shoes, we go ball down, then the front of our foot comes down.
Yeah.
The way you have to walk in these shoes, people can over-exaggerate this. It's a lot more subtle than I'm going to explain it. But your toes come down, and then your heel comes down.
Right.
And you're kind of... And bear in mind it's wet on grass.
Right.
Very slippy.
Yeah.
Especially if you're wearing armour and clank, like you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Stones, really uncomfortable. If you walk on them. A lot of people in that sort of time period wouldn't have really been around paved roads as a rule.
Yeah.
Like you probably... live in your little village and then ever so often get called up and go to a war, you know?
Yeah.
I think getting into the kit was... I found it really fascinating because it was like taking a little trip back in time and really getting into the vibe of what... Like you're wearing the clothes, you're surrounded by the stuff. Obviously there's throngs of people coming by to look at stuff, but you're like... This is what we're doing, you know? Like, we're really getting dressed up in it, and you get a real feeling for it, you know?
So, like, what's the interaction like with the public, then? Are they just, like, constantly sort of cycling by, or...?
Yeah, so it's a bit like a zoo.
Yeah.
They'll walk by, some people will ask, can I take a picture?
Yeah.
A lot of people will just take pictures.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people there with, like, big professional camera gear. Like, there seems to be, like, you know, their kind of thing that they want to do. It felt kind of nice having pictures taken, really, because it means that whatever you're doing and
looks good. Right?
Yeah, and you'll be like. Also, we were like just hanging around the camp, and just kind of. It was nice in these kind of natural moments of hanging around the camp, interacting with each other, having a laugh and a joke, and then seeing people reacting to that in the crowd was actually quite nice. I didn't mind it at all. I actually really enjoyed it. So also people ask questions. Luckily Adam was at hand most of the time, and I'd just be like, that's a very interesting question, let me go and get someone that knows anything about what you're talking about. I went as a non-combatant, so you can so we had to get a sash, a green sash to put around me to mark me as a non-combatant.
Right.
And Valentine was like, she came up with a good idea of like, we'll just tear it down the middle, these bits of cloth, so they can actually fit around us. And I had to sew.
Right.
And
your favourite thing.
Oh, I love it. I haven't really done it before, and Valentine helped, and it was like, I'm not saying it was the prettiest stitches. Like, you certainly wouldn't want that on a wound. It's going to leave an ugly scar, but it did the job. I was pretty...
A tack stitch will do.
Hey, I was pretty pleased with myself when I managed to do it. It was literally just a dumb sash I put around me.
Yeah.
I was a banner bearer, a bannerman.
That's cool.
Hell yes, it's cool. So grab the old banner, and I talked to Adam about it, and I want to just kind of like reiterate some of the stuff I learned, and bear in mind, like, if you are a reenactor and I get this stuff wrong, or if you don't know what this is, like, take everything I say with a pinch of salt, but this is my understanding of it. So usually what happened was you would have your households, and they would be made up of like a lord and his retinue. These would be in the best gear, heavily armoured, well-equipped weaponry. They would also probably train from an early age on how to fight.
Yeah.
So these are your legit, very badass, very dangerous men who would like that. They were the tank or the F-16 of their day type.
Yeah.
They would have. And your bannerman would usually be one of your best fighters.
Right.
So because they had to fight one-handed, and also looking after the banner is a pretty important job, they would usually be one of your top lieutenants, you know? Also, like an interesting thing talking about this period in medieval history and how combat worked. Let's say you live in a village, and your experience with combat is once a week you go down the village hall and you play with some sticks. Okay, you're not really fighty. Your gear isn't the best. If you go off with this retinue, and you're not in the retinue, you're part of the force. And you see the banner go down. It means that the best fighters you have just got mullered, and you're probably next.
Right, okay.
So,
time to run.
Seeing a banner go down. Also, so in LARP, when there's a rout, you have to run to the gate. Okay? You have to get out of there. It's fine. You know, it's fine. You get out. In this, you are potentially miles and miles away from safety. And men on horses and on foot are going to be chasing after you to murder you. And you don't want to be one of the last people to decide to run away.
That's always the worst.
So
if you're going to run, you've got to run early.
Yes, you want to be on your way before the real problems start, and then you're gone. So the idea of like the kind of like protect the banner is something that's a kind of trope that's used a lot in LARP, and it's used a lot in movies. But like that kind of, I like this story because it kind of reiterates the reality of a banner going down. Because if a banner goes down, it's probably time you were leaving, because it's like you're just also, if your duke or noble dies, he's the big I am in your whole area. He decides life and death, how things work. You probably work on his land. If he's dead, your whole world has just flips upside down. Right? Like your life will never be the same again, because there's going to be a change
in leadership.
Leadership. It might be a different lord. It might be of the other side taking over. Like there's all sorts of things. So I found it really interesting talking to Adam and other reenactors about kind of like these historical aspects, trying to understand it. You know?
Well, there's supposed to be this whole thing of like not many people actually died in like the actual battle state, the joining of forces. Most people die in the routs and the sort of the moment of panic.
I feel like this battle was still pretty bloody, but I think a lot of people got literally murdered afterwards, dragged away, beheaded, tortured, stabbed, drowned. Very brutal, very unforgiving. And bear in mind that this is towards, I think this is about halfway through the Wars of the Roses. I think, if I'm right in saying that, because one of the Edwards ruled for, I think, 13 years afterwards, then he died, then it all kicked off again.
Right.
So I think there was already a fair amount of bad blood between everyone involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of animosity going on.
A lot of animosity. It's basically, I think Game of Thrones was heavily based on War of the Roses.
It was,
there's a lot of that kind of skullduggery, loads of people switching sides all the time, and you don't know who you can trust, and allegiances. And...
Well, even on a local level, right? You're a serf or a lower kind of end of like your team, right? The small locality you live in is all you know, right?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden,
this idea of nationalism is like a new form as well.
Yeah.
Like anyway, sorry,
no, but it's very much like that, right? Like your nation actually is often in many ways defined simply by the people, the 100 people, if that, who maybe live in your local area, who you happen to be
travel.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't travel more than to your local market town, right? Like, very, very limited. Also, those shoes, they're not built for long distances.
It's really interesting looking at mapping of this kind of time period, where it's like there's none of those kind of city-town plans that we're used to that come along later. You know, I mean, like, I work in a mapping department, but it's like you have to go quite a ways sometimes, you know, to find like good town maps and stuff like that sometimes of some sort of smaller areas and things.
You would have had old Roman roads that would have fallen into disrepair.
Yeah.
A lot of the roads would have been mud tracks.
It's ultimately like few people travelled long distance, and if they did, they were the outlier. You know, so people lived and died in the communities they kind of grew up in. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and
very different.
And what
world.
that life would have been like, and also to go from that life, to
the big adventure of battle, and there's all those kind of things.
Yeah, must have been absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
like really genuinely teeth-shatteringly scary to think that you're about to. Well, they talk about it in Hardcore Histories, don't they? The Dan Carlin series, where they're talking about if you said to someone, "You're going to kill someone up close and personal with steel weapons, with daggers, with hammers, with axes," like that's the work of a psychopath in our modern era.
Yeah.
But this was what we expected thousands of men to go out and do to each other.
It's some crazy stuff, dude. You know. Yeah,
I'm not about that life, by the way. I don't want to go to war generally.
Yeah,
but medieval war, nah.
Nah.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to get killed. So anyway, we got sidetracked. The crowd are kind of interesting. So the people that were there camping, there's a big kind of hippie vibe to a lot of it. There's your history nerds. There's like. I saw a bunch of LARPers there actually. There are definitely LARPers there. I saw a bunch of people that I've seen at iLARP, and friends were there just passing by. Nice to see them. It was interesting. I spoke to a bunch of reenactors from being a LARPer, and some people would be like quite dismissive of it. Some people would be like really interested. I spoke to one guy on the Friday, and he was talking about the idea of, like I was saying before, reenactment is a show, and LARPing is for an experience between you and the people you're doing it with. And he kind of cottoned onto that and was kind of finding that a really interesting concept. And I was like, yeah, it is. Like, it's very different. And I found it really interesting having a crowd, having people look at you. So I get geared up, and everyone's talking. Like, I'm talking to Adam. Like, is it dangerous? I literally have no idea what to expect. You know. And he's like, well. If it gets scary, get out of there. If someone tries to chase you down, yell non-combatant, and then yell non-combatant again, and then run away some more, but you should be fine at that stage. And I was like, oh my god. And he was like, arrows are going to be the thing that's going to be don't stand in front of cannons.
Right.
And don't like you're going to get shot by arrows.
Okay.
And I was like, what? And everyone I spoke to would be like, oh, those arrows really hurt. Like it happened over and over again. People would mention these arrows. So
what kind of arrows do they use?
So Adam took me to the camp next door where they had a bunch of arrows. They're fucking arrows with these like rubber tips on.
Fuck.
Yes, fuck. Like rubber tips, full length fucking arrows. Proper fucking arrows, and there's no shooting crossways. They're all lob shots.
Right.
So basically, the rule of thumb is if someone yells arrows, don't look up.
Right.
Put your head down, because it will hit your helmet, not your eyes.
Jesus Christ, that alone, I'm out.
Yeah. Like,
I'm out.
I was very concerned about the arrows, but as we started getting towards the point where we were going to go out and get geared up and muster before we went to the battle, I was kind of getting pretty... You know when you're like... That mix between like nervous and excited, stuff, where you're like, I'm fucking... Like when you go into a mosh pit or whatever the fuck it is, right? Like, I'm ready for some fucking violence right now, okay? Let's do it. So I had like a kind of Finn-ish, like Gambeson-ish, not a Gambeson. There was a whole bunch of terms that are like specific time periods, not a Gambeson, whatever the fuck it was.
The equivalent.
The equivalent. I had a falchion, which is like one of the coolest swords ever, strapped to my waist. I had a fairly decorative helmet on, and once I started getting geared up, also I was getting geared up, and the crowd were watching and taking some pictures, and they were enjoying me getting geared up, and it was pretty cool. I got Valentine to tie a fancy onto my belt.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's just like little things like that were like nice little touches, and it was
adds really, character to it, right?
Adds character to it. So we had me, Adam, a couple of the guys, like Lee, there's a couple of other guys, like everyone was very friendly in our group.
Yeah.
We've all got our tabards on.
You're like yellow and black, aren't you?
Yes, yellow and black, with a raven.
Yeah. It's cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
And we were, so historically, the Corbets were Yorkish. I think they switched sides. They were Lancastrians and switched back to the York side before the battle or during the battle. All of this stuff is like I'm not really sure on. But one thing about reenactors is they like to win. Right. Turns out, because the Yorkish forces won this battle.
Right.
Not many people want to be the Lancastrians for some reason.
Right.
So a very heavily sway towards the winning side rather than the not winning side.
Okay.
I found that very interesting. Basically, the guys were like, we're going to go Lancastrians just to make the numbers up. You get a better fight if you're on the losing side anyway.
Yeah.
So they had a pretty good attitude about it. But I found it really interesting how few people...
Sure.
Wanted
it was skewed, right?
Very skewed. So get all the gear on. We get we step out onto the thing. I have our Lord is in front along with Adam, and they walk in front of me next to each other. I stand behind them with the banner. Then behind me are the rest of the fighters. There's like two other fighters.
Yeah. Behind
them is Lee's like 15-year-old daughter who's holding another banner. And she's got a helmet on. So we've been told that there's going to be like a parlay and we need to go forward. So I'll get to that bit. But so I'm talking to her, being like, "Hey, you're going to be my banner buddy. Like, we'll stick together. If we get lost, we'll just work it out." You know. We had Valentine and the 17-year-old were going to be water carriers,
right?
Because obviously, once you get this gear on, and bear in mind, I'm not even wearing a lot of armor. I'm wearing a helmet as really all the armor.
Yeah,
the Gambeson obviously is pretty warm.
Yeah,
but the guys wearing plate, chainmail, lots of leather, of everything's wool.
Yeah,
wool on wool. Yeah. With maybe some linen underneath all of that.
Yeah,
they must have been. I was sweating. I was soaking underneath. Yeah. They must have been. I wasn't even fighting. They must have been drenched. Like hydration, big and clever. Also very warm, very humid.
These the weather was so hot. You
heat stroke.
Yeah,
very real.
Yeah.
I drank a lot of water throughout. I mean, like, bear in mind, I've been drinking, so I think that was I was dehydrated anyway. But I drank a lot. Anyway, we muster.
Yeah,
all go around the back, and to get there, we walk through the crowd, and basically you have to yell like "make way," and like the crowd parts for you when you're going through it.
That's cool,
really cool. Everyone's taking pictures of you and stuff, and I'm like holding this banner, and I'm like kind of getting into it, you know. Walk around. I have to take my glasses off, so a whole bunch of this, by the way, is in Dave Blur vision rather than in full Technicolor.
Yeah.
We go around there, start getting into our lines. There's a bit of a conversation about where we'll be positioned on the battle. And then we're kind of getting ready, and I'm like, oh shit, now it's game time. We march on out. There's literally like lines of crowd either side as we're walking towards the battlefield. Then you come out onto the battlefield, and there's just so many people, like so many fucking deep, like fucking 20 deep fucking people like watching this, and it's they wrap all the way around like half the field or whatever trying to watch this. And you're walking along, and like I don't know, you vibe, man. Like you're really, I'm getting into it, and
it's like a big sports crowd, right?
Yes, that's what it felt like.
It's like stepping out into a big sports crowd.
Yeah. And so we line out. There's cannon there. There's like early musket firers. All the different banners, all the different shiny armor, all their tabards, all the heraldry. So we walk out and we follow our lord, leaving the soldiers in the line, and we walk forward, and then we have to go and have the parley between the two belligerents. So we walk halfway out to the field, have a bit of a... There's a bit of a chinwag between our side, Prince Edward, and King Edward.
Right.
This ends up in fisticuffs.
Right.
There's a princess there who slaps King Edward. It's all very heated. Some of the retinue are giving each other shit, and like there's lots of... Oh, by the way, throughout all of this, there is a tannoy system with a man and a lady doing commentary on what's happening.
Oh, right, that's cool.
So they're going... And here we have young Prince Edward, who is, he's a young upstart versus his uncle, and blah blah blah. And he's like going, they just chat all the way through. Yeah. We had two battles, one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday. It's the same script each time, by the way. It's exactly the same.
So that's our thing, right? Like, obviously, you guys, there's a script of who wins and who loses, but there's also characters. To an extent, like there is a king, there is a prince, there is a princess, right? These are people who are doing a role, and there's a performance to that, and I assume the slap is a thing that happened because it was like,
or it's at least, I get the feeling
it's implied in history. Kind of thing.
It's implied. I think there's a lot of that. Like I know. So at the end of the battle, Edward is killed. Now. We do it on the field.
Yeah.
From what I understand, there's some debate on where he died or how he died, as is the nature of history.
Yeah.
A lot of it is kind of like it's a representation of it, right?
Yeah.
Like so, it's the even the maneuvers on the battlefield are broad strokes on what happened.
Right.
Like there's loads of YouTube series. I like watching these because I'm a war history nerd. Where you watch the little blocks of units,
things move around,
and they like kings and generals and things like that, and history marsh or whatever. And I like watching those. So I did a bit of research before I went, and then I watched a whole bunch of stuff afterwards. And it's quite interesting to go through what happened or believed to be happened and how they represented it.
But like those. Because as I say, that the fact because you're Bannerman, right? But like there are actually character characters in the sense of there is the king, right? And I guess their brief, their thing is different to everybody else's in a respect.
So
right?
I know the main, like the key characters, like the royals, like the king, the prince, the princess. They're all been doing it for. Over a decade.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
This was actually a lot of their last event that they were going to be doing those roles.
Right.
And they had already trained up people to take on those roles next time.
Interesting.
Which was really cool.
I was going to say, because it's like, it's the kind of thing, especially in that, when you were saying earlier, how there isn't like a body that overlooks it, right? It has to be done in the community kind of basis.
Yes,
people taking on those kind of roles is kind of interesting.
I don't know how you take on those roles. Yeah. I assume
you just have to do it for a very long time.
Exactly, right? That's the impression I get. Prove yourself. Also, like there's a big safety thing. You need to be. I couldn't fight. I need to be trained how to fight safely before I can actually actually become a combatant. The way the battle itself. Okay, so have this big old Barney in the middle. Everyone heads back. there's I think it was either now or before then, but there's a single cannon shot, and we have a minute of silence, and it was quite poignant.
Yeah.
Especially on the second day. It hit me harder on the second day for some reason. I got really into it on the second day. Like, I was going, a Corbet, you know, and then that's the call and response type thing. There's also a marcher, which is like an Empire, right? Yeah. Lots of a pox on the Yorkish, like all this stuff, right? People yelling. I really got into it. I started doing a bit of LARPing, basically. Yeah. I was yelling and getting into it. But that minute silence, especially on the second day, having experienced the battle of the day before, was like, man, like this is kind of heavy, you know, like.
But this is an actual event.
It's a real event, and we're still playing Let's Pretend, but we're trying to do it in a responsible way to try and educate people. And there were kids, academics, all sorts of people there who were there, and this is a really good way to learn about history, right? And get to a point where instead of a movie or something like that, or reading a book, it's like it's history in front of you, how it kind of looked. And bear in mind that there was no cavalry, but there was one guy on a horse that rode around, and fuck my ass, horses are fucking scary.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like a big fucking horse with a guy on the back and covered in armour, like, hurtling around the field was like, I want nothing to do with that guy by himself, let alone a fucking cavalry charge. Like, no thank you. There were a lot of two-handed weapons, like they look like bill hooks. I know they're probably not bill hooks, but look like that. Lots of two-handed weapons, so two-handed swords, axes, all sorts of horrible shit. You know, like so anyway, we march back to our lines. We, as the team banner, head around the back. Behind us are the water carriers. In front of us is wall of metal armored dudes. Okay. There were women reenactors. Obviously, everyone's role-playing men because of the historical aspect to it. But like, there were a few women in dressed up in armor and did all the fighting along with the men, and it was really nice to see a bit of diversity. And they fought bloody fierce like everyone else there. So battle starts. We march up. Get to about halfway. The rest of the army to our left flank stops. Our force keeps on going. We engage. We fight a bit. Then we have to pull back. The way they do this is really interesting. So there's a guy with like a stick with a red flag on it, and all the way along the battlefield are different coloured banners. So if you go to one of these events and you're like, wow, this is great, blah, 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 look for the banners, because we literally got told, okay, now withdraw back to the red banner. So then we pull back to the red banner. So it looks like we know exactly what we're doing. But all we're doing is literally looking at the flag and walking back to the flag and standing next to it.
That's probably not too different from how things were organised back in the day, to be honest with you.
No idea. But the cannons are fucking loud. Okay? Like, I know that's like, well, obviously, Dave. So what they do is they pack it with black powder, they put in wet grass down the barrel, ram that in, and fire it off, okay? Fucking loud. Muskets, or whatever the term for those flintlock fire weapons that they were using, were also extremely fucking loud. So you're really getting this, like...
How do they do... Because, like, obviously people getting, like, cut down.
Nope.
Like...
I didn't see anyone really get shot.
Right.
Like, I think that...
I was going to say, because people die, I assume, in the melee, or die, obviously.
Yes, but a lot of the deaths came right at the end of the battle.
Right.
So a lot of people would, like, fight... So, okay.
Tell the story.
We go forward, we have a Barney, we pull back, we then march forward again, get beaten again, then pull back, and then... they start to advance, or there's a general advance, and we all go forward, then we all get beaten back, then there's like a slight lull where there's the champions go and fight in the middle, and this is literally like, it's not planned.
Right.
Who wants to go and have a one-on-one duel thing?
Right.
They walk out into the middle and basically just knock shit out of each other. Oh, I should say, the way that you're supposed to fight, if me and you are fighting, I am aiming for your chest.
Right.
I'm not, and I'm blocking downwards.
Right.
So I'm not blocking up, because obviously you can go in people's eyes and all that sort of stuff like that. Some people were wearing like, they're like gorgettes but larger, and they come over your face.
Over the face. Yeah.
There's a name for them, boards, whatever they are. Yeah. But then, so there is an interest in safety. Now, Adam did go out and do one of these honor duel things because no one else did it, and he was like, "Oh, I'll do it," and he walked out there. The guy that he had a fight with was a little over keen, I would say. I think there should be a bit more. You're there to do a performance rather than to get your rocks off beating the hell out of somebody. And this guy literally stabbed him, Adam, underneath the armpit, which is one of the areas on the body that isn't actually protected by plate or anything. And there was actually a stab wound which was about 2 inches wide and about 2-3 mil deep.
Jeez.
Yeah, like he got stabbed.
Right.
The weapons are all blunted, but they're steel. Okay, like they're very dangerous.
Yeah.
That guy probably should
tone it down a bit.
Remember that you're not like, hey, we all want to have a good time.
Yeah.
All of us do.
There's levels for engagement.
And I would say actually stabbing someone in their armpit is, you probably need to go back home, take a good look at yourself in the mirror, and really think about what you'll want out of reenactment and where you're missing that in other aspects of your life, right? But Adam was fine. He went to the medics and they looked at it and they were like, are you going to go and fight tomorrow? He was like, yes, I am. They were like, well, there's no point in stitching it then because he's going to rip them out. So just keep it clean and dry and have a good time, you know?
Okay, Jesus.
Yeah, there is a kind of... Reenactors are...
You've got to be hardy as well.
They're pretty tough.
Yeah.
They're pretty tough. Yeah. Also, there is obviously a heightened level of danger. We didn't have any arrows fired at us because we were the crowd side. Sure. But over the other side, there was lots of arrows going off. Just the nature of pole arms in these sort of engagement. And accidents do happen. Like, obviously, I'm not... The guy that stabbed Adam... Probably,
it's an accident.
He didn't want to do it. Yeah. I hope to think not. Yeah. But obviously... When you've got lines of people with pole arms and two-handed weapons bashing each other, there's a risk, you know? Like, but I didn't see anyone actually get injured. But what was interesting was there's no man down call.
Right.
There's no let's stop.
Yeah.
It's get yourself to the side and hopefully a medic will come and look after you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we pull back. There's a big old fight. With the Lancastrian side, we basically then get attacked, annihilated. It doesn't go well for us at all. There's like a retreat, and we were told like, "Oh, this is going to be bad. Like this is when you want to run away." So I was there with my banner buddy, and I was just like, "Okay, let's go." And we kind of cheesed it out of there before it really got bad, and went to stand at the back of the field. That's when an awful lot of people were actually felled. Yeah. So a lot of people went down at that point, like littering the field with dead bodies and stuff. Then there was a bit where the prince and the king had a bit of a fight, and then eventually the prince dies. Right. And I think historically he got his head cut off or something. Right. Obviously they didn't cut his head off.
Right. Yeah.
But the Lancastrians are routed from the field or massacred. Yeah. And then it was kind of cute afterwards. The reenactors who played the characters stand up and give each other a hug. And it's kind of like nice to obviously we're not actually killing each other. It's is all, we're all friends here. Yeah. And they had a bit of a chat about how it was their last reenactment, which was really nice. And the crowd gave a big... Also, the crowd are afterwards... They clapped us, the reenactors, they clapped the characters, they all seemed to really enjoy themselves. Like I said, I found the second day like better than the first, but mainly because I was much more comfortable, a
Yeah,
bit
you've
less
done it before,
nervous.
right, yeah.
I was yelling, I was really getting into it, I was yelling insults. Bear in mind, a lot of the fighters are dressed in really heavy gear and are knackered.
Yeah.
So me as a banner bearer, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if you guys are catching your breath, I will hurl abuse at those damn Yorkish pigs, a pox on their houses. Really, really good. There were shower facilities there, which I didn't use, but luckily Valentine gave me like this, like it's like a flannel, but like a glove,
Right.
to sort myself out with, and that was much appreciated. So yeah, that was good. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. I actually kind of want to do it.
Yeah.
I want to get suited and booted. I want to learn how to fight and maybe experience what it would be like to do that.
Right.
Obviously, I don't want to get stabbed in the arm, in the armpit. It comes with its own risk. The community I found were really interesting. So it was funny. There was actually an academic that came along after after the battle, and like Adam and Mila both fanboyed out because this guy had been watching his videos and he'd come over to ask a question. So I got a picture of them together.
Oh, nice.
And he was like really stoked to kind of like hang out with them, but they were definitely like freaking out that this academic had come up. So it's a whole different world of cool, right? Saturday night, there was a band on in the beer hall. That was really fun. They people get dressed up in fancy dress. Not everyone, but a lot of people did. So it's not like historic fancy dress, like
fun stuff.
Just whatever the fuck. And it was really fun seeing a bunch of people. Nice folks. There was a guy did a fire, like
fire dancing thing.
Like he did like juggling, fire juggling is really what it was. Really, really good. Just a fun vibe. Like I really dug it, dude. Like I did like talk to a few reenactors about like some of the reputation that they have. A lot of reenactors kind of had this kind of like eye roll where they were like, yeah, there are bad sides to reenactment. Some people can be quite judgy on other people's kit or take it a little bit too seriously or trying to win. But from my experience, lovely bunch of people. Yeah. Really, really nice. Really, really good. And it was really fun seeing like the younger members of the group that we were in. Yeah. Like I was walking off because I was like walking along and I turned to my banner buddy and I'm like, this is pretty fucking cool, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, I'm having fun. And she's like, I'm having fun. It's like, it's like, it's a cool
You're part
vibe.
of something massive, right? And it's a spectacle. And to be honest with you, that's probably the biggest crowd you're ever going to go out and do a thing in front of, maybe, right? Like, that's a lot of people.
Maybe.
You know, that's...
Who knows?
Who knows? Well, yeah, I mean, you've got that rockstar lifestyle, but
there's lots of different reenactments. There's Viking reenactment. Yeah. There's like pretty much like Britain's been killing each other in different manifestations for invading other people, invading us and us invading them for hundreds of years. So lots of things to kind of get into reenacting. I think the kit itself, there's a very large price tag. Yeah. If you want to buy period shoes, minimum I think the basic ones and the absolute basic ones were 80, which isn't that bad really for leather shoes that are handmade. But if you want to buy good shoes, 400 quid easy. I think it's like one of those things where if you're into making stuff, I think that's probably the best way to get into it. You look up historical documents, ask the community, what do people wear, and you make yourself a few shirts and a few bits and bobs or alter stuff. The armour itself, obviously, I think you're going to want
good stuff.
Yeah. You're going to get hit. Yeah. You're going to get involved. Your weapons need to be steel and blunted. Yeah. So they're all specific things. I had a quick mooch around the shops, but I had to run back on the Sunday because I was mustering. But yeah, had some nice photos taken. I'll try and post them actually on the Facebook group. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any other questions?
No, it sounds fucking great.
Yeah,
I'd heard good things about like the Battle of Tewkesbury in general before.
It's a lovely part of the world as well. Like,
yeah.
I would highly recommend going just for the crack.
How hot it was, I'm sure the people who went had a fucking amazing time in that sort of weather and enjoy it with all the festival activities going on as well.
I mean,
it's
go
a great
down,
place,
have a few beers, watch a giant bust up, go and talk to the reenactors, go and buy some cool stuff. There was some LARP stuff there as well. It was really nice. I like that part of the world anyway. I met really nice people. I had a really good time. It felt like when I was leaving, like, you know that feeling when you're leaving LARP sometimes? It had that same vibe of like, I'm leaving this moment and place. And it's like, this has been really enjoyable. I want to thank Adam and the rest of the Corbet House.
That's awesome, right? All the stuff they put you up with.
It's an amazing experience. And I feel like the experience I had is actually... not many people get to go and do that. Like, that's actually really special. So, and it wouldn't have happened without them. They also helped donate towards the Christmas raffle. So just top people, basically.
So good.
I don't really know how to close it out now.
Well, I guess
we should do
Patreon for sure. And then I guess you can hurl a bit of abuse at the Yorkish, right?
Oh no, my phone. Oh no. Okay. I thought my phone was rebooting there, but bear with. We're going to roll a D11. It's a 5 this time, and that means it's... Who have we got? Who have we got? Yes. Roz, thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. We're not loaded. We have to pay petrol to go to all these events.
Makes a big difference.
It makes a massive...
Especially for all the things you're doing.
Makes a massive difference. So thank you very much, Roz, and to the rest of our patrons. And to you, whoever you are listening, wherever you might be in the world.
So what abuse do you hurl
so
at the Yorkish?
I was yelling stuff like a pox on the Yorkish. I might have thrown in a cheeky... Your puddings don't even rise!